What's good, ladies and gents? Welcome back to MKO Boxing, aka MKO Pugilism, where we talk all things boxing. Like and subscribe on YouTube and follow on TikTok for more boxing news. So let's get into this one. So we had the card over in America this Saturday gone. Very good main event between David Benavidez and David Morrell, the battle of the two Davids. There was a lot of needle before this fight, a lot of back and forth and talk about who's going to knock who out. Benavidez for me was sort of my favorite pick going into this, and he done a very, very good job. Was a solid performance by him. David Morrell was sort of standing there and trading in the pocket. It was pretty much all action from the word go. And David Benavidez, to his credit, he edged it out nicely, won it very clearly, because what he done, to be honest with you, is he made it his type of fight, and he imposed himself from the very first bell. He didn't start slow as he sometimes does, because sometimes in Benavidez's fights he starts quite slow, but then he starts to up the work rate, getting stronger as the fight goes on. But in this one, he pretty much let his hands go, and his work rate was on 10. It was on point from round one. To his credit, David Morrell did make a fight of it. He did have a go. He did put David Benavidez down, but all the way sort of throughout this fight, the problem was that Benavidez, he had the sort of higher work rate, and his punches were just that bit more accurate. And as I said, it all sort of came down to him sort of being the imposer, being the enforcer in the fight, coming forward, making Morrell have to sort of fight in the pocket. Because I feel that Morrell, he sort of had the skill to be able to keep this fight on the outside, and I felt that he really should have been sort of trying to use his speed, use his movement, and not sort of stand toe-to-toe with David Benavidez, because when you stand toe-to-toe with a guy like David Benavidez, you sort of make the fight easier for him, and you're basically giving him what he wants. And for me, that's exactly where David Morrell went wrong. I mean, he needed to sort of get on the move, get on his bicycle a bit. Yeah, stand there in spots, but you want to sort of outbox a guy like David Benavidez, because if you sort of stand in front of him and you trade with him, because of his engine, which is fantastic. David Benavidez, he's shown it throughout all his fights, but in this fight especially, he's got this engine on him where he can throw, it looks like 100, probably not quite 100 punches around, but he's constantly punching, he's constantly offloading, and as some others have pointed out, he's able to throw sometimes from awkward angles and throw multiple punches with the same hand, and he's able to sort of work all night long and throw all night long, and every all of those 12 rounds he's throwing punches. So if a guy with that sort of engine, you've got to sort of try and outbox him. You can't sort of stand and trade with him unless you're an Artur Beterbiev or someone who hits harder than him or something, or that's your style. But I felt that's where Morrell kind of went wrong for me. I want to say he kind of fought David Benavidez's fight. He stood there in the pocket. He did have his success. He did have success in spurts, in bursts. He'd let his hands go. Sometimes he'd be backed up against the ropes. The Benavidez back him up against them. But then he'd come back with, 4-punch combinations. But it was just a case of overall what he done just simply wasn't enough. And it was a case of he was fighting David Benavidez's fight, and he was never going to beat David Benavidez at his own game. There were some times where Benavidez's power told. He was able to shake, he was able to wobble Morrell, but I'd say there was also times where Morrell was able to sort of hurt David Benavidez. But overall, you got to give it to Benavidez because he outworked, he outfought this David Morrell, and he showed his superiority in that. You know, although Morrell's the southpaw is a little bit slick, but the quality of punches by David Benavidez was better, and he was the man that, as I said from the very beginning, he imposed his will on this fight. He made the fight his own fight. He made the fight at his own pace, his preferred pace, his preferred style, and it was fought at his preferred distance, you know, right up close and personal, bombs away, middle of the ring. That's how the fight was, and that's how Benavidez likes it, and that's how it went. So, yeah, very good performance by David Benavidez. Next up, he could be in line to face the winner of Beterbiev versus Bivol. That might be scuppered if Dmitry Bivol wins, because if Dmitry Bivol wins, there might be a rubber match because that'll be one each. But if Beterbiev is able to beat Bivol again, then you could be looking at Benavidez versus Beterbiev. And I think personally, I think Bivol and Beterbiev would beat David Benavidez. Bivol, because I think Bivol's a very, very disciplined boxer, and I think Bivol would sort of outbox David Benavidez. He wouldn't give him those opportunities to just let off combinations. He'd use movement, he'd use his intelligence, his ring IQ, and I think a guy like Beterbiev, I reckon he'd hurt, and he'd maybe stop David Benavidez because he just hits so hard. He hardly needs to put effort into his punches, and even the arm punches he throws will hurt you. But I'd be interested in seeing that fight. It would be exciting to see either one of those. I think especially Beterbiev versus Benavidez, that would be really exciting. And you know, even the winner of if Yard and Buatsi fight, the winner of that against Benavidez, or either Yard or Buatsi versus Benavidez, those would be fantastic fights. But yeah, let me know what your thoughts were on this fight, and who you think David Benavidez should be facing next. Let me know in the comments, and until next time, it's MKO Boxing, over and out.